Okay, guys, we're going to talk about order of operations, which we've been talking about for a while. This is something that you guys did last year, and we've already done a little bit of it this year. But what we were going to do, and the reason why we've been practicing working with decimals and fractions and all of those things, is so that we can put them all together and we're going to be able to solve expressions that have rational numbers within them. So we're going to be working with decimals, we're going to be working with fractions, we're going to be working with all types of things. So some of the key things that you're going to need to remember is what order of operations are. It does not change. PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, add and subtract. You need to remember what rational numbers are. Rational numbers are all those other numbers that are decimals and fractions and percents. Actually, everything that is a number on the number line is a rational number. Remember, integers are those that have the negatives, decimals, percents, fractions, and reciprocal we talked about a little bit. Reciprocal is when you take a fraction and you flip it. So the reciprocal is the opposite of what the fraction looks like. So 3/4 would be 4/3. All right, rules to remember. Adding integers, when the signs are the same, you add, and then you take the sign of the larger number. These are key, and I can't tell you how important these are for you to remember your integer rules for adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. Subtracting, the signs are different. You take the larger number and put it on top, then you subtract, and then you take the sign of the larger number. Multiplying integers, negative times a negative is a positive. Dividing integers, negative times a positive is a negative. These are things that you have to remember in order to keep up with this. It's going to be consistent all the way through the year. You need to remember your adding and subtracting decimals. Same thing with your integers. Make sure you follow your integer rules. Make sure when you're adding and subtracting decimals that your decimals line up and that you put a placeholder when you need to. Multiplying decimals, you do not have to line up your decimals. You just set up the multiplication problem vertically with the larger number on top. So if there's a 2-digit by 1-digit, put the 2-digit on top, multiply it by the 1, and then however many places you have on the right side of the decimal is how many spots you're going to need in your answer. And you can go back to multiplying and dividing fractions videos and stuff to be able to remember how to do this. Adding and subtracting fractions, you must line them up vertically. They must have a common denominator. Add the numerators across and simplify your answer. Remember, you're adding and subtracting integer rules. Remember, I keep saying that over and over again. Subtracting fractions, make sure that the larger number goes on top. When you take away the positive and the negative, the larger one goes on top. And then if you need to borrow, borrow. Multiplying and dividing fractions. Multiply fractions, you're just going to simplify. If you can cross cancel, which is going for diagonally, not the butterfly. Do not say butterfly, because butterfly is not what we're talking about here. We are cross canceling. We're looking across. And then simplify if you can. And then dividing fractions, you line up horizontally, find the reciprocal of the second fraction, then change your division sign to multiply. So basically, dividing fractions, you are multiplying by the reciprocal. In other words, keep the first fraction, change the sign to a multiplication, and flip the other fraction. All right, so we're going to do a tiny bit of practice here. And we've got 7 squared minus 15 plus 13, and 4 plus 6. So we need to do our parentheses first. 15 plus 13 is going to give you 28. And then once you've got your 28, then we've got to do our exponents. 7 times 7 is 49 minus 28 Then we've done our exponents. We need to multiply. And some of you may not see this, but 28 times 4 is what we would need to do next. And that would be 112. And I'm just rewriting the problem. So then now we've just got subtraction and addition there. So now we just go from left to right. So 49 minus 112 is going to give me a negative 63 plus 6. And I'm going to get a negative 57 as my answer. All right, let's go to the next problem. Oops, apparently that didn't want to erase, so it didn't erase. So we're going to erase all of that. Not sure why that worked the way that it did, but it did. Same issue here. We've got negative 3.2 times 1.4 plus 4.6. And let's go get ahead and get started. Let's do what's in the parentheses first. This is one of those things where you've got rational numbers within your order of operations. So 1.4 plus 4.6. 6, you have to line up your decimals. 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry my 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. 6. 6.0. So we're just going to leave that at 6. And we got negative 3.2. And when you multiply a decimal by another number, like I said a while ago, put the bigger number, put the not bigger number, but put the number that has the most numbers on top. So 3.2, you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about lining up your decimals. It's just a multiplication problem. So you can even pretend that there's no decimals. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry my 1. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 1 is 19. And, and you've got one number on the right side of the decimal. Even though there was a 0 over here, that doesn't mean anything. There's nothing over there. So let's not work with that. Let's just work with this 2 over here. So that means that I'm going to go over 1, and my decimal is going to go right here. This was a negative. A negative times a positive gives you a negative. So your answer would be negative 19.2. And that is just one example. You've got some extra practice to do in an Edpuzzle video that you're going to submit for me to review.